discriminating gamer, the board game lover's answer to reading Rainbow. My name is Cody. Well, let's just jump right into it. Today we're going to take a look at Space Negotiation Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion from Fantasy Flight Games. As Mace Windu would say, hold on to your butts. That's Mace Windu, right? Star Wars Rebellion from Fantasy Flight Games is a game of the Great Galactic Civil War for 2 to 4 players. The game encompasses pretty much the events of the original Star Wars trilogy: A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you play the game. The map is of the galaxy. You've got 30-some-odd systems. You've got Coruscant in the middle, which of course is the Imperial capital. And then you've got all these other systems out there. Some of them, most of them are populous, meaning they have resources and they can be controlled with the population. Some of them are kind of more remote. But what you are going to do in this game is, if you are the Rebel player, you're going to pick a Rebel base and try to stay hidden for as long as you can. If you are the Empire, you're going to try to use your military might to find that base and crush it. Now, at the beginning of the game, each side has leaders, 4 leaders to be exact. And these leaders, of course, have different skills like diplomacy, intelligence, combat strength. And what you're going to do is have mission cards. And these mission cards are really the heart of the game, because what you're going to do is you're going to send leaders on different missions throughout the game board. You're going to send them on sabotage missions, on diplomatic missions to try to get worlds to come over to your side, or various other missions. Now, many of these missions can be contested by an opponent's leader. So you've got to watch out, because every time you go out on a mission, it's possible that could get thwarted. Beginning with the Rebel player, each side is going to figure out what missions they're going to do, and then they may want to leave some leaders in reserve in their pool, because they may come in handy to oppose the other players' missions, or even do some other things in the game. So, beginning with the Rebel player again, you reveal a mission, or maybe you can move starships. You can activate a system by placing a leader there and move your starships and your ground units from one system to another, into that system where your leader is. Of course, you have to make sure your ships have transport capacity for ground units and for TIE fighters to make sure that they can be carried and brought to that new system. So you go back and forth, essentially playing your leaders, playing them on missions, or playing them on for activating systems to move your ships. Now, if you move your fleet into a system with opposing spaceships, you immediately trigger space combat. In space combat, essentially you're going to roll dice that have symbols on them to try to overcome your enemy. You're also going to play some cards. Based on the leader you brought in there, you're going to get a number of space cards or ground cards, tactics cards that you're going to play during the battle. So will your enemy. You'll roll the dice, you'll play the cards, you'll figure out who wins. People are either going to get their units destroyed, they may have an opportunity to retreat. After you resolve space combat, if there's ground units, then the ground units will battle as well. Now, whenever the Empire lands ground units on a new world, they can immediately subjugate it. And that means it's not as good as loyalty, because you don't get all the resources, but for all intents and purposes, they control it. They can even subjugate worlds that are loyal to the Rebel Alliance. Critically, however, as soon as a Imperial ground unit lands on a world, if that is the world where the hidden base is located, the Rebels have to announce, okay, yeah, we're here, and of course you're going to trigger some combat. Now, after the command phase, you're going to go to the refresh phase. During the refresh phase, you're going to advance the time marker. You're going to have the opportunity to recruit new heroes, perhaps build new units. And the way you build units is cool. You've got a track, and you look at the different worlds. It tells you what kind of units you're going to be able to build and kind of what space on the track, 1, 2, or 3. And then each turn, that track is going to move further and closer to you so that you can then eventually, within a few turns, build whatever is on there. Also, too, during the refresh phase, the Imperial player is going to draw probe cards, essentially cards that show what worlds your base is not on. So it's going to kind of narrow down their focus. They're going to know what worlds they don't have to look at in order to try to find the Rebel base. The Rebel player is also going to draw objective cards. Now, objective cards essentially are ways they can increase their reputation. And that's going to be important because that's going to be how they're going to win, is by increasing their reputation. So they're going to get cards that will say, if you can pull this off, if you can destroy a Star Destroyer, or if, you can pull something off on a Imperial inhabited world, or you can destroy so many units, or yada, yada, yada. If you do that, then you can go ahead and advance the objective marker up the objective track. So essentially, you keep going through these rounds, you keep advancing through these rounds. The Empire is going to try to spread out and try to explore as many worlds as they can to make sure that that's not where the Rebels are. But at the same time, they got to make sure the Rebels aren't getting too powerful anywhere. The Rebels are trying to play for time. They're trying. There's a game of bluffing and deception here. Where the Rebel base is and where do they want to concentrate units on the map, either to protect the base or maybe to draw the Empire away from the base. And you can do that, of course, not just with fleet movements, but with your missions as well, and that's, of course, pretty cool. But also, critically, as you're going through these things, you're always aware that if the Empire finds the Rebel base and they can destroy the Rebel base before it can be moved, a certain card will let you move it, then the Empire wins the game. The Rebels will win the game if their objective marker, if their reputation essentially meets the time tracker. So if ever those two come and they meet in the middle, then the game is over and the Rebels win the game. They've got enough popular support out there that the Empire cannot maintain control. Now, throughout the game, the various missions you're going on, the various planets you're going to, everything is very, very iconic from Star Wars. You're kind of acting out scenes and events from the original trilogy movies. They're all being played out there, so you're kind of reenacting, kind of creating an alternate history of the Galactic Civil War on the board. So I have to tell you, when Star Wars Rebellion was first announced, I was very excited because, to me, this looked like the Star Wars game I had always wanted to play. A grand, galaxy-wide, galactic struggle. Almost kind of, dare I say, on the Axis and Allies model of trying to conquer worlds. Highly thematic in Star Wars. And so I thought, wow, that's really cool. And I was also very interested in this because it sounded very much like an old PC game I used to play from the late 90s called Star Wars Rebellion. And it was the same thing. You're moving your fleets around the galaxy. You're also sending your various characters on missions. Luke could go to Dagobah and get trained. Han could get frozen in carbonite. And so I loved that PC game. And the more I learned about the board game, I thought, wow, that really seems like the PC game. And in fact, I believe I heard Christian Peterson mention something recently that the board game was partially inspired by the old PC game. So that made me very excited. So, and of course, Fantasy Flight Productions are just second to none. I mean, they're just a brilliant company when it comes to designing and producing just these very high quality games and game components. So all these reasons put together, and again, they've done so well with previous Star Wars games. Imperial Assault, Armada, X-Wing, they're all phenomenal. So for all these reasons, I was very, 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 very excited for Star Wars Rebellion. I love the idea of a grand scale Star Wars game, an epic scale. I love that idea. And I was so looking forward to Star Wars Rebellion. And so I played it a few times now. And after having played it, overproduced, clunky, not very interesting, just not fun, are terms I will not be using in this review because Star Wars Rebellion is freaking awesome. Did you really think I was not going to like this? There's no way I was not going to like this. It's Star Wars Rebellion. It is brilliant. It is freaking awesome. Is it Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition awesome? No. But it's close. It is close. This game, I mean, I actually thought going into it, this game could topple, theoretically, Twilight Imperium for me, my favorite game of all time. It did not do that, but man, it's close. I'm thinking come top 10 games of all time, this is maybe top 10 stuff I'm talking about here. This is good stuff. Early contender for Game of the Year. I reviewed Talon a while ago. That was an early contender. And now Star Wars Rebellion is an early contender for Game of the Year. Freaking love this game. What do I love about it? No. What don't I love about it? Nothing. That's not true. I do have some criticisms. Combat in this game is good. It's functional. It works. It's just, I don't know. It wasn't as interesting as I kind of hoped it was. I really hoped combat in this game would have been something either really low-tech, just rolling dice and a numbers game, and that was it, you know, like an Axis and Allies roll-off. Or I was hoping it would be something really, really special. Something kind of like Forbidden Stars from Fantasy Flight Games, which I thought the combat in that system worked very well. A little long, but it was interesting, and it was unique, and I really liked that. And here, I kind of felt like the combat system, like I say, while it's functional, while it works, it's not as good as it could have been. You know, I just wish it was a little bit better. Someone suggested, when you get to the space combat, pull out Armada and do Armada, and then go back to this game. I think that'd be fun, but too long. So the combat system, good, not great. That's probably the weakest thing about this game. That's probably the weakest thing I have to say about this game. I know Quinn's on Shut Up and Sit Down was kind of critical of the fact that he thought the game was just kind of a mishmash of events from the movie, and I can kind of see his point there, but the reality is I felt I did construct a narrative every time I played it. I felt like I was seeing a story play out, you know, when I was sending Mon Mothma on those diplomatic missions, you know, or I was using Darth Vader to foil a sabotage mission. I really did feel, I mean, I could see the story in my head, and you're rolling the dice for some of the mission oppositions, and it clicked with me. I thought I got into it, and so did everybody else I played with. You know, I played a 2-player game, played a 4-player game, and I felt like everybody thought they clicked. It was just good, solid, tense, and highly narrative, highly thematic games. Now, having said that, I mean, gosh, the game hasn't even been released when I'm making this video, and I'm already saying, let's get some expansions out here. And even if they're just card expansions, even if they're just new missions, that could be really, really cool. Or maybe even bring in, the Scum and Villainy faction in here in some way. That would be cool. I think this game has got some room for some really fun and interesting expansions. And, you know, let's look at the expanded universe, you know. We got tons more characters. Throwing a Grand Admiral Thrawn there, that would be pretty cool. And, maybe this particular game wouldn't work too well with the Force Awakens stuff, but maybe there's a way they can integrate it. I don't know. But I gotta tell you, it's just, Star Wars Rebellion is just a whole lot of fun. It is the Star Wars game I have been waiting for really my whole life. A board game I've been waiting for, because again, it just knocks it out of the park as far as grand, epic, strategic games go with a brilliant IP. I gotta tell you, those cats at Fantasy Flight Games knocked it out of the park, yo. Armada was probably my favorite Star Wars game. That came out last year, and it was my favorite. And I'd hate to think I was somebody that just says, as soon as the new Star Wars came out, it's my favorite. But I gotta tell you, Rebellion, I cannot think of a Star Wars game that would beat this. When I played X-Wing, when I played Imperial Assault, when I played Armada, I loved them all. I thought they were all a lot of fun. But I always thought I would still like that grand strategic game. And I know Tom Vasil at the Dice Tower always talked about how maybe they make Twilight Imperium 4th Edition Star Wars. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is the answer to Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, Star Wars Edition, if you will. I think this is what they came up with, and they did a fantastic job. It's a great game. It's a phenomenal game. So the recommendation for the discriminating gamer for Star Wars Rebellion is, of course, you're going to want to buy this one. You're going to want to love this one. You're going to want to marry this one, maybe buy a house in the country with this one. you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We are The Discriminating Gamer. And the greatest character in the Star Wars franchise? Lando Calrissian.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm